Chufang's first night on Jade Dragon Mountain becomes a fight against a horse-sized tiger. The man-eating beast has already slaughtered soldiers and now charges toward his exposed campfire. However, Chufang carries homemade bombs, a fire gun, and military knowledge from his previous life. He drags Wang Wei and Sun Qin toward the tallest tree before the tiger reaches them. 2 more steps would have placed all 3 men beneath its enormous claws. Instead, they scramble upward while the tiger crashes through the snow behind them. Their weapons seem primitive, but Chufang knows exactly how to combine them. Before the night ends, this monster will become the fortune protecting his pregnant wife and daughter. The 3 hunters cling to the branches, breathing heavily, as sudden silence covers the mountain. Wang Wei cannot see the tiger below and wonders whether it finally retreated. Chufang closes his eyes, ignores the wind, and concentrates on faint scratching sounds. The noise comes from behind them. He spins and finds the tiger climbing the opposite side of their tree. Its massive head rises beside the branch close enough to swallow a human skull. Chufang swings his axe immediately, but the beast twists away with unnatural speed. His blade cuts empty air, leaving his body exposed to the tiger's next strike. Wang Wei rises despite the narrow branch and smashes his machete onto its forehead. The weapon could split a man's skull, yet it bounces from the tiger's bone. Wang Wei loses his footing during the reckless attack and nearly falls beside the animal. Chufang and Sun Qin seize his jacket before gravity finishes what the tiger started. The wounded predator drops to the ground, then releases 3 deafening roars beneath them. Blood runs across its forehead while its red eyes remain fixed upon the hunters. The beast measures more than 3 meters from its head to its tail. Each paw leaves a print wider than Chufang's hand in the deep snow. He finally understands why even the mountain's brown bear avoids the dangerous third peak. Against an ordinary tiger, the bear might survive, but this creature is something worse. The tiger begins climbing again. Chufang orders both companions to prepare the explosive tubes hidden beneath their clothes. Wang Wei and Sun Qin ignite their fuses and throw the bombs without controlling the timing. Chufang holds his own charge silently, counting while the striped head rises closer. At the final moment, he drops it directly between the tiger's shoulders. 3 explosions tear through the darkness and shake snow from every surrounding branch. Smoke dirt and burning powder swallow the ground while the hunters lose their hearing. For several tense moments, none of them can locate the beast beneath the smoke. When the air finally clears, only black craters remain under the damaged tree. Wang Wei hopes the blast destroyed their enemy, but Chufang knows the explosives better. Those crude bombs can tear flesh, yet they cannot erase such a massive animal. He climbs down first and discovers thick drops of blood staining the untouched snow. Sun Qin's legs tremble, though he follows, because abandoning Chufang feels even more dangerous. The trail leads toward the wounded tiger, which now staggers between rocks and trees. Its breathing sounds broken and blood pours steadily from wounds across its body. The predator that chased them minutes earlier now tries desperately to escape. Wang Wei suggests throwing another bomb, but the moving target stands too far away. Wasting their remaining explosives would leave them helpless if the tiger attacked again. Chufang reaches into his pack and reveals the fire gun kept secret from both companions. To Wang Wei and Sun Qin, the unfamiliar weapon resembles forbidden military equipment. Chufang calmly loads the powder, lights the fuse, and aims from 50 steps away. The shot strikes the tiger and knocks its enormous body sideways into the snow. Wang Wei begins celebrating, convinced that no animal could survive another devastating wound. Then the tiger rises once more. Half its skull is exposed, one eye is destroyed, and arrows protrude from its neck. Yet instead of fleeing, the beast climbs a boulder and turns toward Chufang. Its final roar contains no fear, only fury toward the hunter who broke its body. The tiger leaps down and charges despite its ruined eye-shattered skull and failing legs. Wang Wei and Sun Qin freeze as the blood-covered monster closes the remaining distance. Chufang raises his bow. His first arrow sinks deeply, followed by another that exposes bone beneath the fur. He avoids the valuable belly and back because every undamaged section of skin means silver. The tiger neither stops nor cries out, continuing forward through every successful strike. 3 meters remain when Chufang releases his final arrow into the surviving eye socket. The beast collapses so close that its momentum sprays snow across his boots. Had it remained healthy, Chu Fong would have died before drawing his second arrow. He briefly honors the strongest opponent he has faced since arriving in this violent world. Respect cannot feed Xiao Xia their daughter Miao Miao or the unborn child. Therefore, the three men begin dismantling the tiger before cold stiffens its enormous body. They preserve the skin organs, meat bones, and every valuable piece they can carry. The animal that nearly killed them becomes a walking treasury divided among three exhausted hunters. They return through the village's darkest alleys, covered in blood and carrying heavy sacks. Chu Fong warns them that nobody can learn what happened before they complete the sale. Discovery would bring questions about bombs, firearms, and skills no ordinary ranger should possess. At dawn, they take the tiger remains directly to Old Tian's mansion in town. The wealthy patriarch sits comfortably while his granddaughter Tian Xin waits beside him. Old Tian has been pressuring the young woman to marry someone who preserves his family name. His attention changes when the butler announces that 3 mountain hunters have arrived. He previously requested a tiger whip, but clearly expected Chu Fong to return empty-handed. Before seeing their cargo, Old Tian dismisses them as troublesome peasants seeking assistance. Chu Fong answers by overturning his sack. A gigantic tiger head rolls across the polished floor and stops near Old Tian's shoes. The granddaughter guards servants and patriarch stare as their legs weaken simultaneously. Most people in this era know tigers through frightening stories rather than direct experience. The head before them is larger than anything those protected townspeople imagined possible. Old Tian's trembling hands confirm that the hunter has fulfilled the impossible request. Chu Fong produces the preserved tiger whip required for the patriarch's expensive medicinal treatment. Old Tian immediately orders a servant to rush it toward Dr. Lu without delay. His cold attitude disappears, replaced by praise, friendly touches, and sudden marriage proposals. He first suggests bringing Chu Fong into the Tian family through his granddaughter. Tianxin blushes while Wang Wei and Sun Qin struggle to hide their excitement. Chu Fong refuses because he already has a wife he has no intention of betraying. Old Tian then offers Tianxin as a future concubine after his treatment succeeds. The proposal sounds generous, but Chu Fong recognizes an attempt to avoid immediate payment. He asks directly whether such a vast estate truly cannot produce 500 silver taels. Cornered by the question, Old Tian claims his wealth has supported the nation's war effort. He promises part of the payment in cash and the remainder through a written debt. Chu Fong appears agreeable because arguing inside a guarded mansion would accomplish nothing. Outside, the hunters discover only 200 taels and a nearly worthless promissory note. Worse, the document carries Tianxin's name instead of the wealthy patriarch's signature. A granddaughter who controls no property cannot guarantee repayment from the Tian family. Wang Wei nearly ignites a bomb from pure outrage beside the mansion's fortified gate. Sun Qin demands grain, livestock, or anything more useful than deceptive paper. Chu Fong stops them before emotion turns a financial betrayal into collective execution. Old Tian keeps armed guards' influence and enough authority to destroy their families. If officials discover the explosives, every connected villager could face interrogation or imprisonment. The two companions finally retreat, though neither man believes Chu Fong has forgiven the insult. His quiet laughter confirms their suspicion. The tiger was not the most dangerous creature Old Tian cheated that winter. For 10 days, Chu Fong behaves like an ordinary ranger patrolling Jade Dragon Mountain. He brings Bin Bin, the growing dog, and Hua Hua, the snow leopard cub. Bin Bin charges ahead through the paths while Hua Hua walks lightly across frozen snow. Villagers watch the strange group as though an animal performance has entered their fields. Chu Fong avoids expensive purchases and warns his companions to continue appearing desperately poor. Sudden comfort attracts thieves, officials, relatives, and questions about impossible sources of wealth. Meanwhile, the war worsens shortly before New Year, forcing authorities to demand additional grain. Old Tian publicly presents himself as a patriot by donating 5,000 stones of grain. The announcement enrages Wang Wei and Sun Qin, who remember his claims of poverty. A man unable to pay 3 hunters somehow controls grain worth thousands of silver taels. Chu Fong waits 2 more days before quietly summoning his companions after nightfall. Delaying revenge separates them from the failed transaction and weakens any obvious motive. Attacking immediately would have made 3 angry hunters the first suspects questioned by constables. Once Xiao Xia and Miao Miao sleep, Chu Feng slips from his warm house. Wang Wei and Sun Qin wait outside with explosives, fuel, charcoal, and gathered firewood. They enter town through a hidden passage that bypasses the night curfew. Their destination is not Old Tian's residence, where sleeping servants might die. They approach the grain warehouse that Old Tian publicly claims is already empty. Chu Feng wants repayment through destruction, but he refuses to murder uninvolved household workers. Burning an empty building seems like punishment without bloodshed. He positions the firewood carefully, adds charcoal for endurance, and spreads oil last. His companions almost ignite the flames too early, risking an explosion that extinguishes everything. Chu Feng corrects them, lights 3 fuses, and orders everyone to run. The bombs erupt together. Fire rises through the snowstorm and illuminates the town like a forbidden festival display. From a safe distance, the 3 men watch the entire warehouse burn with surprising intensity. Wang Wei notices that an empty structure should not produce flames of such enormous size. Chu Feng refuses to investigate and orders every remaining bomb hidden deeply after returning home. He crawls beneath warm blankets before Xiao Xia notices his absence and closes his eyes. By morning, violent pounding at the door destroys his satisfaction. Village Chief Du Dahai announces that county officials and constables have entered Jade Dragon Village. Chu Feng's mind immediately builds escape plans while his family makes running impossible. He follows the chief expecting arrest, interrogation, and discovery of weapons beneath his bed. Instead, Constable Liao Shang introduces him as the mountain ranger needed for another assignment. The officials display a military defense map and ask whether he understands its markings. Chu Feng reads every gate guard position, route, and vulnerability without visible effort. His knowledge comes from modern education and previous military service, making the map dangerously clear. Admitting this would expose abilities no poor mountain villager should reasonably possess. He therefore pretends confusion until Liao Xiang accepts his illiteracy as completely normal. Then the constable casually mentions the warehouse fire. Chu Feng keeps his face calm while his heartbeat accelerates beneath his winter clothing. The officials reveal that all 5,000 stones of grain were destroyed overnight. They also claim that a witness has already identified the person responsible. Chu Feng performs surprise and asks why donated grain remained inside Old Tian's warehouse. Both officials laugh because Old Tian never sent the promised supplies toward the front. The entire patriotic donation was a lie designed to protect his reputation and fortune. Chu Feng realizes he accidentally destroyed enough grain to support his village for years. He cannot express regret without revealing knowledge that only the arsonists should possess. More astonishingly, the authorities blame Guan, a dangerous man connected to Peach Village. Witnesses saw Guan moving suspiciously through town before fleeing when local residents pursued him. He also killed members of Old Tian's household and kidnapped several women during his escape. Those crimes have nothing to do with Chu Feng, though they occurred during the same night. Guan fled into Jade Dragon Mountain, where ordinary officers cannot navigate deep winter conditions. The officials want Chu Feng to find him. He acts humble, emphasizing that he merely inspects trees and walks through mountain snow. Lucy reminds him that this supposedly simple ranger killed 3 enemy soldiers alone. Chu Feng attributes the achievement to luck, but the officials recognize he expects compensation. They offer land, a house, farmland, and an official government position inside town. The reward could relocate his entire family without exposing the silver hidden at home. A government grant would explain sudden prosperity better than any story Chu Feng invented. He accepts while pretending that capturing criminals naturally belongs to his ranger duties. Everyone smiles, unaware that they are sitting beside the man who burned the warehouse. Lucy then warns that Guan possesses a fire gun. Chu Feng stares innocently at a drawing identical to the weapon concealed beneath his bed. He asks how the unfamiliar object works, maintaining the expression of an ignorant farmer. The officials explain that it fires too quickly for an ordinary person to evade safely. They also admit the front line is weakening and enemy troops may approach Snow Ridge town. That danger changes Chu Feng's thoughts about moving his pregnant wife into an obvious target. Invading armies attack fortified towns for supplies, authority, and control of surrounding territory. Isolated villages near enormous mountains may appear worthless enough to escape immediate attention. Chufang returns home and discusses the offer with Xiaosha. She has grown healthier since food stopped dominating every decision inside their household. Bin Bin greets him excitedly while Hua Hua rests like royalty upon the woodshed. Xiaosha rejects town life almost immediately because wealth offers no protection during invasion. She values neighbors who teach her, defend her, and share burdens during difficult seasons. Still, she promises to follow if Chufang believes relocation is necessary. Her trust leaves him feeling unworthy of the loyalty she gives without hesitation. Their conversation ends when Xiaosha's uncle arrives, carrying tools, nails, fencing, and saltpeter. Chufang recognizes the explosive ingredient but allows his wife to negotiate without interference. The uncle requests food, though he once treated Xiaosha as a disposable burden. She trades him rough rice and frozen bones rejected by their growing animals. He accepts the heavy bag happily, never realizing how little respect accompanies the exchange. Chufang recognizes that his formerly submissive wife has become quietly formidable. At her uncle's home, the scraps ignite another humiliating argument among greedy relatives. His wife secretly keeps the rice throws down the bones and denies seeing anything valuable. Xiaosha's drunken father arrives seeking food and receives a slap when he protests. The family begins screaming publicly, while neighbors gather only to enjoy their disgrace. Back in Jade Dragon Village, Xiaosha feels guilty for giving away bones useful for soup. Chufang promises to hunt a wild boar and provide something better for his family. Their peaceful meal ends when the village emergency gong echoes violently through the darkness. Widow Wang has been kidnapped. Guan seized her near her home while her injured son watched helplessly nearby. Until that moment, Chufang intended to avoid the government's dangerous capture assignment. Guan could have escaped quietly while accepting blame for a fire he never started. By taking a respected woman from Chufang's village, he transforms inconvenience into personal war. Widow Wang has supported Xiaosha, taught her useful skills, and protected the household socially. Chufang gathers his bow arrows, axe bombs, and hidden fire gun. Wang Wei and Sun Qin prepare to accompany him into the mountain night. Widow Wang's injured son insists on joining, although he can barely stand without assistance. Chufang refuses because another helpless body would endanger both rescuers and hostages. He also prevents the village chief and other volunteers from learning his forbidden weapons. Before departure, Xiaosha arrives with Bin Bin's leash and worry shining in her eyes. She does not beg Chufang to remain safe at home. Instead, she gives him the dog, most capable of tracking Widow Wang through fresh snow. 3 men and 1 animal follow 6 visible trails toward the mountain's darker slopes. Wang Wei initially mistakes every footprint for an enemy belonging to Guan's group. Chufang separates 3 controlled male trails from 3 smaller disordered captive trails. The hostages slow their kidnappers, giving the rescuers a realistic chance to close distance. Bin Bin follows the scent confidently until a human shape appears suspended between trees. Wang Wei and Sun Qin drop in terror, believing a ghost blocks their path. Chufang approaches and discovers a murdered young woman hanging naked from a branch. She is the fish seller's daughter, previously taken from town by Guan's criminals. The girl was abused, strangled, and displayed in the freezing darkness as discarded property. Wang Wei digs a temporary grave in the snow and marks it for later recovery. Chufang's anger becomes controlled determination, leaving no possibility that Guan receives mercy. Farther ahead, the tracks separate toward Peach Village, the mountain peaks, and enemy territory. Chufang first chooses the forest route because its footprints appear most numerous. Flickering torches emerge through the trees, but they do not belong to Guan's kidnappers. Armored Dasha soldiers move silently in formation towards sleeping civilians inside Peach Village, warning the government it may cost Widow Wang's life while continuing risks an entire village. Chufang forces cold air across his chest until panic stops interfering with judgment. He sends Sun Qin toward town with urgent information about the approaching enemy force. Wang Wei remains beside him because abandoning Widow Wang is still unacceptable. At the divided trail, they struggle to identify which path Guan actually followed. A snow leopard's roar answers from the direction of the higher mountain. Big Flower Hua Hua's mother watches them from the slope and repeatedly faces one route. Chufang trusts the animal's senses and follows her guidance toward the captives. Elsewhere, Guan keeps Widow Wang exposed to deadly cold while handling his stolen fire gun. She warns him that Jade Dragon Village has a guardian who will come searching. Guan believes a single firearm makes him untouchable against any uneducated mountain hunter. He does not know Chu Fong owns the same weapon and reloads it far faster. Big Flower steps onto the criminal's path, blocking 3 armed men without attacking immediately. Their formation breaks as one panicked criminal attempts to flee from the enormous leopard. While Guan fumbles with powder and equipment, Chu Fong silently reaches his firing position. His first arrow leaves the darkness and buries itself deep inside a criminal's neck. The first criminal collapses silently, clutching the arrow lodged through his throat. Guan turns toward this body, giving Wang Wei time to emerge from another direction. Wang Wei demands the captive's release, deliberately drawing the fire gun away from Chu Fong. Gun recognizes him and confidently lights the fuse, expecting an ignorant peasant to freeze. Wang Wei has already witnessed what firearms can do and sprints behind the pine trees. Guan fires too late. The recoil nearly throws him backward while his shot tears harmlessly through empty branches. Before he can order his last companion forward, another arrow enters that man's neck. 2 criminals fall within moments, yet Guan cannot determine where the attacks originate. Wang Wei moved left, while both arrows arrive from the opposite side. Big Flower remains behind Guan, calmly watching his fear replace arrogant confidence. Chu Fong finally drops from a tree as Wang Wei returns from the bushes. Guan raises the fire gun and claims it can kill anyone from 50 steps. Chu Fong has already seen him miss a stationary target from less than half that distance. Instead of attacking immediately, Chu Fong asks whether Guan carries additional gunpowder. The strange question confuses him long enough to begin another painfully slow loading process. Guan pours powder, reaches for the ramrod, and searches for his ignition tool. By the time his fuse catches, Chu Fong's hand is already gripping the barrel. He tears away the weapon and aims it directly at Guan's thigh. The criminal's own burning fuse fires the shot. Guan falls screaming as the blast destroys his leg and leaves him helpless in the snow. He still reaches toward the gun, unable to understand how quickly control has changed. Chu Fong uses a prepared paper cartridge instead of Guan's clumsy loose powder method. He reloads within seconds, revealing experience impossible for an ordinary mountain ranger. Guan's eyes widen just before the second shot enters his stomach. The wound will not kill him immediately, which is exactly what Chu Fong intends. Guan murdered the fish seller's daughter and displayed her body without human dignity. A painless death would offer mercy he never showed to any of his victims. Widow Wang and the surviving captive are safe, while Guan bleeds beside his fallen accomplices. Wang Wei watches Chu Fong handle the firearm with speed resembling practiced military training. The entire battle lasted only minutes because Guan wasted most of them struggling to reload. Chu Fong leaves his personal gun concealed and uses only the criminal's stolen weapon openly. Officials can later believe that a desperate ranger learned through observation and good fortune. A perfect execution shot would make Lu Shi question where a farmer learned advanced marksmanship. Gin responds to defeat by threatening the entire village with retaliation from the Lotus cult. Widow Wang Wei and the other captive hear every word clearly. The threat gives Chu Fong witnesses and a defensible reason to finish the criminal permanently. His axe tears into Guan's shoulder when the wounded man narrowly protects his head. Fear finally replaces arrogance, but negotiation becomes impossible after the murdered girl. The axe falls again. In his previous life, Chu Fong served as a soldier during peaceful years without killing anyone. This brutal era has gradually pushed him from self-defense toward deliberate executions. He understands that corrupt officials could release Guan after money and influence change hands. Justice without reliable courts sometimes arrives through the weapon of the person still standing. Chu Fong then hides his certainty behind the frightened expression of a shaken village ranger. Widow Wang immediately promises that every witness will confirm Guan's deadly threats. She comforts her rescuer, unaware that his trembling performance conceals careful legal calculation. Chu Fong gives Guan's heavy coat to Widow Wang, whose thin clothing cannot survive the cold. Warmth returns to her body during the long descent from the mountain. She spends the journey reassuring Chu Fong instead of speaking about her own suffering. He leaves Guan's fire gun beside the corpses because taking known evidence would create suspicion. They recover the murdered girl from her temporary grave and carry her home with dignity. Every villager waits awake near the entrance, watching torchlight descend through the darkness. Relief sweeps through the crowd when Widow Wang appears alive beneath Guan's coat. Her injured son falls before her and condemns himself for failing to stop the kidnapping. Widow Wang finally breaks down after remaining strong throughout the entire ordeal. Her son thanks Chu Fong and even admits the earlier slap prevented a disastrous mistake. Once the reunion settles, Chu Fong privately warns village chief Du Dahai about Dasha soldiers. Sun Qin has gone for government support, but Jade Dragon Village must prepare independently. Every able-bodied man receives a weapon and remains awake through the dangerous night. Chu Fong takes the rescued women and the dead girl toward town for official reporting. Meanwhile, Peach Village becomes a battlefield between local forces and the invading Dasha unit. Fighting continues until dawn, covering the snow with casualties from both armies. The enemy eventually retreats, but neither side escapes without severe losses. Compared with an invasion, the warehouse fire and Guan's deaths become minor paperwork. Lu Xi and Liao Shang locate Chu Fong the following morning after his sleepless ordeal. He has rescued women, exposed an invasion, crossed deep snow, and eliminated 3 criminals. Nevertheless, he describes himself as a frightened mountain ranger who survived through luck. Lu Xi suddenly presents a fire gun and asks whether Chu Fong understands its operation. He mixes ignorance with observation, claiming he only watched Guan load and ignite one. When questioned about aiming, he pretends not to understand the meaning of the word. The officials still decide to issue him Guan's recovered weapon legally. Firegun soldiers are rare specialists whose weapons remain forbidden to ordinary troops. Gunpowder is expensive, and such units usually appear only during desperate battles. Despite this scarcity, the government arms a supposedly uneducated ranger with official approval. They also appoint Chu Fong captain of a 10-person Jade Dragon Mountain Patrol. The title brings danger, attention, and responsibility he has carefully avoided. Refusing could place the patrol under someone controlled by Peach Village or Guan's family. Chu Fong's pregnant wife and young daughter cannot remain near enemies holding official power. He accepts the position. His orders require regular patrols, immediate reports, and direct engagement with invading soldiers. Chu Fong displays patriotic enthusiasm, despite having little attachment to this unfamiliar kingdom. Authorities announce that he may select 5 members from each of the 2 villages. Patrol members avoid grain tax, while chosen men who refuse must pay twice as much. Jade Dragon Village fills its places immediately without Chu Fong needing to recruit anyone. Widow Wang's son joins first after receiving his mother's approval. Wang Wei and Sun Qin step forward because danger has never discouraged either companion. Du Chong joins for political protection while Xiao Yan seeks purpose after his mother's death. Peach Village offers nobody. Its refugees fear serving beneath the man who killed 2 sons of their former chief. Old Guan approaches politely, hiding resentment beneath the expression of a harmless elder. Chu Fong orders Peach Village to provide 5 members after receiving 2 days to settle. He later tells Du Dahai that his family will remain in Jade Dragon Village. The new position requires proximity to the mountain, while towns attract armies and looters. Silver alone no longer provides security in a world where officials can seize anything. Chu Fong now possesses a government title, legal weapon, and squad capable of protecting others. Du Dahai then reveals that he has hidden something beneath his large family house. He leads Chu Fong through a woodshed and down into a concealed underground storage chamber. A heavy wooden box rests beneath old grain protected from discovery for several decades. Inside lies a ruined fire gun once carried by Du Dahai's father. The weapon exploded during its first battle, destroying the soldier's arm and one eye. Beneath the broken firearm rests a much greater gift. Nearly 100 pounds of dry, high-quality gunpowder fills the remaining space. Grain storage and the mountain's dry climate preserve the military powder remarkably well. Chu Fong now controls enough explosive material to manufacture scores of powerful bombs. The government gave him a weapon without ammunition, but Du Dahai unknowingly solves that problem. The village chief hopes the powder can protect their people if the regional war reaches them. Snow Ridge Town's fall would allow enemy forces to sweep through every nearby settlement. Some villages might lose only grain while others could lose every resident. Du Dahai has witnessed war before, and the darkness in his expression silences Chu Fong. Chu Fong proposes moving the entire village onto Jade Dragon Mountain if invasion becomes unavoidable. 40 villagers could survive where armies, officials, and tax collectors rarely travel. Wild animals and rumored curses remain dangerous, but they offer better odds than organized slaughter. Du Dahai considers the idea impossible, yet Chu Fong promises to search for suitable land. As patrol captain, exploring the deeper peaks now belongs to his official responsibilities. He carries the gunpowder home while imagining a hidden settlement beyond the reach of war. 2 days later, Peach Village finally sends 5 patrol members. Every selected man is elderly. Chu Fong initially accepts them because older men may prove more obedient than proud young fighters. Then Old Guan personally joins the group despite approaching 80 years of age. The father of 2 dead sons smiles constantly at the man responsible for both deaths. Such friendliness feels more threatening than open hatred because patience can conceal revenge. Chu Fong sends the elderly team onto the first peak while claiming urgent town business. Before departure, Xiao Xia reports that Meow Meow has developed coughing and a facial rash. The village doctor is absent, forcing the entire family to travel toward Snow Ridge Town. They enter Return Spring Hall, where a young apprentice ignores Xiao Xia's repeated requests. Her village clothing marks her as someone he believes can be dismissed without consequence. Xiao Xia grows quiet because town residents have treated her as inferior throughout her life. Chu Fong slams the counter hard enough to crack the wood. He condemns the apprentice for risking a child's life merely because her parents appear poor. His precise language sounds like the argument of an educated scholar rather than an angry farmer. The frightened apprentice finally retrieves the actual physician from the back room. Xiao Xia watches her husband with growing confusion because his abilities keep exceeding his identity. The apprentice begins doubting that the poorly dressed visitor possesses any genuine education. Before he can challenge Chu Fong again, head constable Lu Shi enters the clinic. Lu Sai ignores the apprentice and greets Chu Fong with the familiarity of a trusted associate. He discusses weapons patrol matters and future government support with an arm around his shoulder. The apprentice's confidence collapses as the supposed peasant speaks casually with powerful law enforcement. Lu Xi warns Chu Fong not to carry the fire gun openly inside town. He also mentions that heavy battlefield losses have created urgent demand for new officers. Chu Fong recommends his lazy brother, useless father, and troublesome relatives from Stream Village. Removing them into government service would keep them away from Xiao Xia during mountain patrols. They will believe they gained status while Chu Fong quietly removes threats from his household. The doctor diagnoses Meow Meow with recurring hives rather than a deadly disease. Treatment can ease the symptoms, but lasting relief requires rare Tiannan purple grass. The herb grows only near the dangerous 4th or 5th peak of Jade Dragon Mountain. Chu Fong adds the plant to his exploration goals beside finding a future settlement. He insists on paying despite the doctor offering free treatment as an apology. After accepting the silver, the physician slaps his apprentice for humiliating suffering patients. Xiao Xia leaves while repeatedly glancing toward the husband she understands less each day. The government later supplies 10 spears and 10 short swords for the patrol. Although rusty, every weapon can still kill a soldier or defend a villager. Meow Meow rides home scratching her rash, while Chu Fong silently promises to find the herb. Near the village road, 5 armed strangers block the family's cart. Their leader identifies Chu Fong as a government associate after seeing him speak with Lu Shi. The bandits demand the weapon supplies and cart in exchange for allowing the family to leave. Then their leader demands Xiao Xia as well. Chu Fong's hesitation disappears. He has already loaded the official fire gun and prepared the ignition tool in his other hand. The first shot tears through the leader before his command to attack is completed. Everyone freezes except Chu Fong. He reloads with a paper cartridge and kills a second bandit within moments. The remaining 3 abandon their robbery and flee silently into the surrounding forest. Xiaoyan cannot understand how a new firearm user achieved 2 lethal shots so quickly. Chu Fong dismisses the performance as simple aiming against large targets at close distance. Because Xiaoyan lacks firearm experience, he accepts an explanation that should be impossible. They search the dead bandits, finding little money and only one suspicious written message. Xiaowen cannot read it, but Chu Fong immediately recognizes official handwriting and dangerous orders. He hides his literacy, sends the family onward, and returns alone toward town. Inside the government building, he places the letter before Lu Shi and Liao Xiang. They identify the county magistrate's handwriting without surprise. The magistrate ordered Lotus Cult bandits to steal the weapons issued to Chu Fong's patrol. He intended to sell government property privately after murdering or robbing his own subordinate. The criminal's attempt to take Xiao Sha turns financial corruption into a personal threat. Chu Fong wants confrontation, but both officials warn that approaching the magistrate means death. Lu Si plans to report the dead bandits as the magistrate's successful operation. Giving their corrupt superior false credit prevents him from noticing Chu Fong as an obstacle. Liao Xiang admits that Lu Shi considers Chu Fong literate, capable, and useful to their faction. The two officers are building influence against the magistrate and expect Chu Fong's loyalty. He promises support because they remain the only officials currently shielding his family. In return, Liao Xiang asks him to provide meat for Lu Shi's father's birthday. Chu Fong leaves, understanding that money offers nothing without enough power to resist theft. A magistrate can send killers after him, while lower officials demand favors for protection. In his former life, military rank provided rules, structure, and recognized rights. Here, talent only makes him a more valuable tool for powerful men. At home, Miao Miao wrestles with Bin Bin while Xiao Sha prepares a steaming meal. Watching them reminds Chu Fong why he needs authority rather than revenge or glory. A peaceful family in a lawless world remains a target until someone can defend it. That night, he brings every remaining silver tael to Du Dahai. He requests access to the black market despite warnings about surveillance and execution. The hidden money cannot be spent openly, stored safely, or protected from corrupt officials. Chu Fong wants to transform it into weapons, supplies, and defenses benefiting the entire village. He trusts Du Dahai because both men already share dangerous secrets involving military gunpowder. Their mutual vulnerability creates stronger honesty than polite friendship alone. After drinking heavily, the village chief finally reveals the black market's location. The following morning, Chu Fong prepares to distribute weapons and begin official patrol duties. Before he can leave, his older brother Chu Long appears after weeks of hiding. Chu Long proudly announces that Lu Xi has already recruited him as a junior constable. He believes the smallest government badge now makes him untouchable inside the village. Chu Fong reminds him that a patrol captain outranks an inexperienced errand officer. Wang Wei, Sun Qindu, Chong Xiaoyuan, and Widow Wang's son arrive fully armed. Wang Wei knocks Chu Long down after the arrogant brother threatens them with his new position. Chu Long attempts to report the assault when Liao Xiang approaches with government bundles. He expects the official to arrest Chu Fong and punish every villager present. Instead, Liao Xiang warmly delivers newly made patrol uniforms directly to Captain Chu. Chu Long watches his imagined authority disappear beneath his younger brother's greater rank. When he continues complaining, Liao Xiang slaps him and threatens to revoke his appointment. The officer then asks Chu Fong for another favor involving old Tian's granddaughter. Tianxin climbed Jade Dragon Mountain alone while searching for medicine and never returned. Liao Xiang values Chu Fong's survival more highly and forbids unnecessary risk during the search. Chu Fong has little sympathy for a wealthy woman who entered lethal territory voluntarily. Nevertheless, the request remains attached to the officials currently protecting his household. He builds a wooden sled to carry weapons, supplies, and anything valuable found during patrol. His 5 selected villagers proudly wear uniforms and resemble a genuine military detachment. Before departure, Old Guan and the 4 elderly Peach Village members demand equipment as well. Chu Fong claims they are off duty, but Old Guan cleverly volunteers them for joint training. Refusing men who openly request instruction would expose obvious favoritism between the villages. The patrol expands to 11 people, forcing Chu Fong to conceal his personal fire gun. He also redirects them away from the secret camp known only to his closest companions. Surprisingly, the elderly members maintain pace through deep snow without falling behind. Old Ju silences Wang Wei's mockery by recalling years of mountain climbing before his birth. The grandfathers then ask whether official patrol members may hunt during their assignments. Every man listens because hunting rights mean meat, income, and winter survival. Chufeng permits hunting and considers using the full group to corner mountain sheep. They reach the second peak plateau with strong morale and no immediate sign of enemy troops. A piercing cry suddenly cuts across the sky. A golden eagle with a wingspan near 3 meters descends toward the exposed patrol. The flat plateau offers almost no cover from an animal capable of lifting a grown man. Chufeng orders everyone toward the dense trees with spears ready. The elderly patrol members cannot sprint quickly enough, and the eagle selects Old Guan. Allowing the bird to take him would remove an enemy seeking revenge for 2 dead sons. Chufeng stops anyway. His 5 villagers immediately turn with him despite terror visible across every face. They form a defensive ring around Old Guan with 11 spears pointing outward. The eagle abandons its first dive after seeing a wall of sharpened steel. The patrol moves together toward the forest while the predator circles above awaiting weakness. Old Guan cannot understand why Chufeng protected a man who has every reason to hate him. Chufeng answers that no patrol member dies while serving beneath his command. Before they can recover, the starving eagle dives between the trees and attacks again. Realizing the predator will never let them leave, Chufeng raises his fire gun and prepares to fight. Chufeng climbs into a tree, loads the fire gun, and exposes himself as deliberate bait. The eagle rises high above the plateau before folding its wings into a deadly dive. Its enormous body accelerates toward him faster than any ordinary bird should move. Chufeng steadies his breathing while golden eyes expand across his entire vision. He fires at the final moment. The eagle senses danger, changes direction in mid-air, and escapes above the bullet. Chufeng realizes the diving predator moves faster than his primitive firearm can reliably strike. Running remains impossible, staying invites another attack, and a blizzard approaches behind them. Old Guan proposes using a person as bait, so the eagle must descend toward the ground. He volunteers himself, knowing his death would conveniently remove Chufeng's greatest political enemy. Chufeng refuses because a leader cannot sacrifice a patrol member for personal advantage. Old Guan walks onto the exposed plateau anyway and challenges the bird with his spear. Old Ju joins him, unwilling to let another elder face death alone. Wang Wei follows then. Every remaining patrol member charges forward with raised weapons. Their courage gives Chufeng the stationary target he needs. Sun Qin stands beside him, handling ignition and reloading while Chufeng maintains aim. The eagle commits fully to the dive. Chufeng fires once, and the massive bird flinches without abandoning its attack. Sun Qin reloads immediately, allowing a second shot to tear through one broad wing. The third bullet enters the eagle's head before its talons reach the clustered patrol. Its dead body crashes directly onto the men standing below. Feathers swallow the formation while frightened survivors stab upward from beneath the corpse. Chufeng orders them to stop after confirming that the predator no longer moves. The patrol crawls free, covered in feathers but alive after defeating the airborne monster. Old Guan thanks Chufeng for protecting him and trusting his dangerous plan. He also notices 3 shots fired within seconds, a speed difficult to explain naturally. Before he can question the method, the worsening blizzard forces everyone toward home. During the descent, Old Guan finally asks whether his son truly attacked Chufeng first. Chufeng describes the arrow aimed directly at his neck and mentions surviving witnesses. The elder receives the truth without argument, carrying the burden of what his son became. The first peak appears close when a low rumble begins above the exhausted patrol. Snow breaks loose across the slope. Chufeng shouts a warning, but the avalanche reaches them before anyone can escape. White force swallows every patrol member and throws Chufeng onto the loaded sled. He crashes through trees, crosses the slope, and loses consciousness after striking something hard. When awareness returns, somebody is dragging him by the legs across frozen ground. A worried woman pulls him into a cave while cold consumes the strength remaining in his body. With no fire available, she presses close and uses body heat to prevent fatal hypothermia. Chufeng awakens later beside Tian Xin, the missing granddaughter he never intended to rescue. She burns with fever while his surviving sled and weapons rest safely inside the cave. Tian Xin saved both his life and the military equipment scattered by the avalanche. The outside snow reaches shoulder height, confirming that the higher peaks suffered even worse destruction. Chufeng starts a small fire, melts snow for water, and examines Tianxin's gathered plants. Among her herbs lies Tiannan purple grass, the exact medicine needed for Miao Miao. Tianxin climbed to the fourth peak alone because a doctor demanded sincerity for her grandfather. Chufeng prepares a cold remedy and forces her to rest until standing becomes possible. When he clears the cave entrance, dozens of hungry eyes stare from the surrounding snow. A starving wolf pack has waited outside, trapping both survivors inside the narrow shelter. Chufeng has 2 fire guns, prepared cartridges, and a short sword but limited ammunition. He teaches Tianxin the loading sequence and allows her 1 practice shot. Her first attempt strikes near the entrance, proving she can handle the weapon under pressure. They position both guns toward the cave mouth and alternate between watching and resting. Darkness falls before the wolves finally lose patience. The first animal enters and dies beneath Chufeng's shot. A second wolf charges during the expected reload delay, but Tianxin fires the other gun. The pack understands the pattern and rushes together before either weapon can recover. Several wolves cross the firing zone. Chufeng drops the gun and draws his short sword inside the narrow passage. Only 1 or 2 animals can reach him at once, transforming the pack into repeated single combat. Steel gunfire, claws, and blood fill the cave entrance through a brutal war of exhaustion. Tianxin fires from behind a rock while Chufeng blocks every wolf entering the passage. His strikes weaken after the avalanche, hunger, cold, and accumulating bite wounds. The surviving wolves finally retreat, leaving the cave filled with bodies and torn fur. Chufeng collapses briefly, but distant howling announces that the remaining pack seeks reinforcements. He skins 2 large wolves and turns their pelts into emergency coats for himself and Tianxin. They leave immediately while 6 survivors follow at a cautious distance. Avalanche debris blocks the familiar route home near the 3rd peak. Tianxin begins grieving because she believes her grandfather will die before she returns. Chufeng explains that old Tian's condition was never urgent enough to justify this deadly journey. The patriarch likely expected his granddaughter to fail or disappear before inheritance became complicated. Tianxin understands that filial duty was used to send her toward a quiet death. They choose a longer route, wrapping toward enemy territory and the hidden valley below the peaks. This route passes the region Chufeng has considered for a future wartime settlement. The wolves disappear from sight, but Bin Bin's familiar barking suddenly echoes across the mountain. Additional barking answers from several directions before the stalking wolves can attack. A sled pulled by 9 powerful dogs races across the snow toward them. An athletic woman wearing animal skins commands the team with complete confidence. She identifies them as Dayan people and orders both travelers onto the sled immediately. The dogs drive away the weakened wolves and carry Chufeng through the night. He awakens inside a hidden mountain village belonging to the Kishi tribe. Dozens of raised wooden homes reveal an organized society adapted to deep winter conditions. The tribal chief explains that Kishi people consider dogs family and hate the Dasha nation for eating them. When he sees Chufeng wearing tiger and bear pelts, the elder kneels in astonishment. Those animals terrorized Kishi hunters for generations and killed many members of the tribe. Their deaths make Chufeng a celebrated warrior rather than a criminal. The tribe provides warm shelter, meat, soup, tea, and the first complete meal in days. Chufeng observes their independence from taxes, magistrates, and invading armies with growing interest. Their mountain lifestyle proves that an isolated community can survive without the kingdom below. Before departure, the chief asks Chufeng to accept his granddaughter as a wife. The woman who rescued them is Sui Hua, a skilled sled driver and the tribe's strongest beauty. Tribal tradition promised her to whoever killed both the mountain tiger and brown bear. Chufeng refuses because Xiao Sha remains his wife and deserves loyalty. The elder still orders Sui Hua to guide them down the longer route around the avalanche. During the silent journey, she concludes that Chufeng rejected her because of her appearance. He explains that she is beautiful, powerful, and physically impressive, but marriage would betray his family. Sui Hua believes unwanted women must offer themselves to the mountain god and walks toward a cliff. Tianxin grabs her waist first, and Chufeng helps pull the warrior from the edge. He insists that Sui Hua belongs to herself rather than any husband or ancient promise. She accepts the reasoning briefly, then attempts the cliff again because tradition still demands death. Chu Feng stops her by agreeing to the marriage. He delays the arrangement until spring, using the blocked road and dowry preparations as practical excuses. Sui Hua becomes joyful while Chu Feng imagines explaining this disaster to his pregnant wife. The sled resumes until the lead dog warns of another approaching threat. More than 30 wolves surround the route, including survivors from the cave attack. The dog team turns and races toward an abandoned mountain fortress. Tian Xin uses a sword against one wolf while Chu Feng shoots others approaching the sled. 5 wolves block the final path as the main pack closes from behind. The dogs charge through them despite bites tearing into their sides. Chu Feng fires repeatedly, removing every wolf attached to the running animals without striking a dog. The team crashes through the fortress gate moments before the entire pack reaches them. Chu Feng slams the doors shut and secures them beneath the impact of 30 bodies. Inside, they discover abandoned towers, military spears, and a frozen corpse. A hidden cellar contains preserved vegetables in jars that thankfully hold pickled cabbage. Another locked chest reveals oil-coated military grenades with intact fuses. Chu Feng finally possesses weapons capable of destroying the wolf army outside. At dawn, they load the sled with food, weapon supplies, and the entire explosive chest. The gates open and wolves attack from every direction as the 9 dogs accelerate downhill. Chu Feng and Tian Xin fire back-to-back, breaking through the surrounding pack. The wolves pursue them toward a frozen river, where the dogs will lose traction. Chu Feng deliberately slows the sled, allowing the predators to gather tightly behind them. His first grenade fails. The sled reaches the ice as the pack closes dangerously near the injured dogs. Chu Feng throws 3 more grenades into the concentrated formation. Multiple explosions erupt together and scatter wolves' blood and iron fragments across the river. The surviving animals flee with missing limbs and shattered confidence. 9 terrified dogs then retreat behind Chu Feng instead of celebrating their survival. A black figure stands upright ahead, waving one dark foreleg with human-like movement. Sui Hua identifies the creature as the mountain ghost feared by generations of Kishi hunters. Tribal stories describe a man-like bear capable of imitation, deception, and deadly ambushes. Chu Feng recognizes an ordinary black bear standing dramatically upon its hind legs. One gunshot destroys the supernatural legend by forcing the creature onto all fours. The wounded bear pretends to collapse, then suddenly seizes the lead dog by the neck. Chu Feng and Tianxin fire together at point-blank range. One bullet enters its neck, another destroys an eye, and the mountain ghost dies permanently. The lead dog suffers shallow bites but avoids serious injury. Sui Hua celebrates Chu Feng as the greatest hero in Kishi history. The increasingly crowded sled now carries 3 people, 9 dogs, explosives, and a dead bear. After 3 days, they finally reach the familiar forest near Jade Dragon Village. While Chu Feng fought across the peaks, Xiao Sha spent 2 days believing he might be dead. Search parties returned without his body tracks or any sign of survival. His relatives interpreted uncertainty as an opportunity to seize his stored wealth. Chulong arrives with their parents while Xiao Sha's grandmother, uncle, and alcoholic father follow. Both families insult the missing man and argue over ownership of his hunting supplies. Xiao Sha insists her husband remains alive because every other patrol member survived the avalanche. Most capable villagers are searching the mountain, leaving few people able to stop 6 aggressive adults. Someone calls Old Guan from Peach Village for assistance. The elder brings young men and patrol members to defend Chu Feng's household. Blood relatives claim the dispute is private family business, temporarily limiting his authority to intervene. Grief empties Xiao Sha's resistance until she says nothing matters if her husband is truly dead. The greedy relatives enter the storage shed and divide food gathered through Chu Feng's labor. They prepare to leave with stolen meat while Xiao Sha stands beside Miao Miao in silence. At the gate, her father walks directly into Chu Feng's blood-covered body. A wolf pelt covers the returning ranger while 9 massive dogs growl behind his axe. Tianxin, Sui Hua, the loaded sled, and the dead black bear complete the frightening procession. Meow? Miao breaks the stunned silence by announcing that her father has returned. Chufang quietly asks why relatives are stealing from his house. Xiaosha's father drops to his knees and claims the food was intended for a memorial feast. Chulong copies him, hoping submission will prevent the axe from moving. Suihua kicks both men aside and tries to attack them for exploiting a grieving family. Tianxin restrains her because killing relatives inside the village would create legal consequences. Xiaosha approaches Chufang slowly and touches his face to confirm that he is real. Relief settles across her expression when he promises that they can continue their life together. Then the gentlewoman turns toward both abusive matriarchs. Xiaosha slaps her grandmother for cursing Chufang and his mother for stealing their property. She declares that neither bloodline has any remaining claim upon their household. Chufang's mother argues that cutting family ties requires his approval and an elder witness. Village Chief Du Dahai arrives and formally asks whether Chufang rejects the Chu family. Chufang confirms the permanent separation before the entire gathered community. His mother accepts because refusing would publicly reveal her desperation to control him. With the relationship legally ended, Xiaosha strikes her once more without violating family law. Her own relatives still resist separation until Chufang threatens to report their organized robbery. Xiaosha's father immediately agrees to sever every connection to avoid government punishment. Du Dahai records the second separation, freeing Xiaosha from her grandmother, uncle, and father. She delivers final slaps to the grandmother, who abused her for most of her life. Every intruder leaves without food, dignity, or legal connection to the household. Once the crowd departs, Xiaosha finally embraces Chufang and admits how deeply she feared losing him. Old Guan quietly withdraws after defending the family without requesting reward or recognition. Tianxin leaves with the medicine, believing Chufang's warning about her grandfather may prove true. Wang Wei and Sun Qin reveal that they searched continuously throughout his disappearance. The final difficulty is Sui Hua standing inside the yard beside 9 homeless sled dogs. Chufang explains again that his wife, daughter, and unborn child leave no space for another marriage. Suihua acknowledges him, then carries a huge fish into Xiaosha's kitchen and begins helping. Chufang retreats toward Du Dahai's house, leaving the impossible domestic situation unresolved. The village chief reveals that officials promoted Chufang after believing he died during duty. His new title is Station Mountain Officer with command over 20 men. The position includes a monthly coin grain and enough authority to build a genuine defensive force. Chufang explains that he also discovered a possible relocation site beyond the dangerous peaks. Using pigskin and a brush, he draws terrain water routes, threats, and defensive possibilities. Du Dahai stops laughing when the crude handwriting reveals sophisticated military planning. Liu Xiang enters unexpectedly and notices the unfinished map before they can hide it. Suspicion appears when he realizes a village farmer can read and produce tactical terrain analysis. Chufang uses his educated family background and Chulong's recorded literacy as an explanation. He then reframes the relocation map as intelligence about the route used by Dasha infiltrators. Clearing the bandit fortress could block enemy movement and create a path for Dayan counterattacks. Liaoshang sees promotion victory and political credit within the proposal. Chufang requests fire guns and gunpowder to seize the fortress successfully. Higher authorization remains necessary, but Liaoxiang promises to submit the strategic request. The plan also makes Chufang too useful for officials to cancel his accidental promotion. The following day, he travels with Wang Wei and Sun Qin toward the hidden black market. They enter the town's poorest district and locate an ordinary house behind Spring Wind Restaurant. An elderly dealer named Ku Yi receives them in a concealed courtyard. Chufang uncovers the dead man bear, immediately proving that his merchandise is extraordinary. Ku Yi offers 300 silver taels because the valuable pelt remains mostly intact. Chufang accepts without bargaining, revealing that he wants more than payment. He asks to purchase military fire guns, gunpowder, and grenades. Ku Yi warns that unauthorized possession of such weapons carries execution. Chufang describes bandits, refugees, enemy soldiers, and the government's failure to arm his village quickly. Death from official punishment later seems preferable to slaughter without weapons now. When the dealer hesitates, Chufang questions whether he truly possesses forbidden firearms. Ku Yi's pride overcomes caution and he offers 20 fire guns with powder. Grenades remain unavailable because every battlefield explosive is carefully accounted for. The weapons cost 200 silver taels, consuming most of Chu Feng's hidden fortune. He pays 100 immediately and leaves another 100 from the bear sale with Ku Yi. Delivery is scheduled for the second day after New Year, when ordinary bandit activity should remain low. Wang Wei worries that the dealer may disappear with their entire payment. Chu Feng accepts the risk because 20 firearms can transform frightened villagers into a defensive unit. Money stored at home can be stolen while weapons held by loyal people create lasting security. If the agreement succeeds, corrupt officials, raiders, and enemy soldiers will face organized resistance. Chu Feng leaves the black market having exchanged nearly all his wealth for the possibility of power. As New Year approaches, he prepares to stop serving as everyone's useful tool and become the threat they can no longer ignore.